All right, in this video we're going to talk about sand seal or no sand seal. The first part of the video, I'm going to explain to you about this from a builder standpoint and why builders will do things a specific way. If you want to skip ahead, you're welcome to do so. The second part of the video, I'll get into the details of why I don't like sand seals unless you need it. If you're going to an engine builder and he says, I only use sand seals, just go with whatever they do. And this is the thing is, if you want something done a specific way, you do the whole job yourself, okay? A shop that's doing an engine build for you has to do everything a specific way because they may have issues if they do it varying all different types of ways all the time. And they're trying to avoid those issues. And in order for them to pay rent in a building and make a fair profit for themselves to feed their families, they're going to do things a specific way. They may do things completely different than the way that I do them and the way that I show people on YouTube. And usually they're not wrong. Usually there's reasons why, and they stick to these certain ways that they do things for a production line standpoint so that they can get home at the end of the day and make $1 and feed their families. I've said the same thing in the body work and stuff like that world. You know, you just get what you pay for, and you can't pay someone to do this sort of thing. So when I was putting this one together, I had to pull this pulley off, I don't know, 10 or 15 times in order to get that to line up and to be clearance correctly. I put it on halfway, pulled it back off, and there's a little spot where I could see where it was hitting, and then had to sand it. There was, you know, issues, the keyway, everything had to be just perfect in order for it to fit. These are really tight fitting cases with the pulleys for the aluminum case. So a lot of builders will go, no, I won't do it unless I do sand seal, because that's, you know, they can't deal with something like that. If they had to take something apart 10 times, they're losing money. Okay. So you guys at home, if you want to deal with it, then you've got to deal with whatever issues you're going to run into by doing it that way, which I'm fine with. I will do that myself on my own engine or something I'm doing for someone like this one. You know, I'll spend the time and do it. And it doesn't matter, because if it takes me a couple days extra, it doesn't matter to me. But if it's a production line guy at work, he's not going to want to do that. So what the sand seal is meant for was, back in the early days, we used to, these things were duners. We wouldn't have this tin on here, and sand would just end up in here, and it would wallow out the area between this pulley and the case because there's no seal there, and it would start to either leak oil, or a lot of times the worst thing would happen is it would get sand in the oil. And so that's when you go out duning, sand duning, the sand is so fine it can get in everywhere. You have to have bags on your air cleaner. I mean, there's a whole bunch of rules you got to follow going out duning with one of these. So one of the things we used to always do is every time we went out, our oil got changed every time. So because you couldn't risk that sand getting in your bearings, ruin everything within a season, you'd ruin an engine if you did that. If you tried to go 3,000 miles or whatever. So what they came up with is a sand seal for the back here of the engine. I used to have a sand seal pulley. I couldn't find it. I was looking for it so I could show you what the difference is. What they do is they cut the case for a seal, and then they cut the pulley down. And right at the keyway of the pulley, which I don't have another one to show you, it's really, really, really thin. The pulley can be really thin. And now if you're running an aluminum pulley that's sand seal cut, so they have to cut all those little grooves out of the pulley. All those little grooves have to be cut out of there so that the seal will seal, because, you know, it has a slinger on it. So that area where the keyway is extremely thin. And if you have an aluminum pulley with that keyway on there, I've seen a lot of times, more than once, they crack on that keyway. So I don't personally like to run a sand seal on my car if I don't need it. If I'm going to the dunes, I will run a sand seal for sure, okay? But if I'm just doing a street car, I won't like to do it. Now, when you're doing one of these engines, a lot of times they're tight with the aluminum case. It's tight with the pulley. This has been a common thing people run into. It's just a really tight tolerance. And, you know, if you looked at the video building this, the line bore, you know, was, it was a half a millimeter between, it was a whole millimeter, or not millimeter, thousandths between, that's way too much, a millimeter would be way too much. A thousandths between, 1,000ths between the bore of this one, the middle one, and the other side. There's a thousandths difference. And, you know, that can make the crankshaft just slightly, not 100%, you know, a little tiny bit off. And there's a very, very tight tolerance on this thing on the aluminum case. The mag cases, I think it was quite a bit looser. And, you know, this thing can actually hit. And especially when you're using a aluminum pulley, a brand new aluminum pulley, and a brand new aluminum case. A lot of times you'll go to put it on carefully. Don't beat the thing on. If you watch how I did the other engine build, I just knocked it on real quick because, and somebody says, oh, you can ruin the, the thrust bearing. I don't think so, guys. You aren't ruining the thrust bearing from hammering on a pulley. Believe me, when that bearing gets stressed from the clutch release, in the vehicle moving, it's a lot more than just a little 3-pound hammer knocking this thing on. So when you put these on aluminum case, tap them on gently, go on nice and slow. If you feel it start to stop, pull it back off and look at it. So you got to spend the time that you need to make sure it doesn't rub. All right, so you got to take it off, like I said, 6, 7, 8 times, taking this pulley off. If I was a production shop, I would not use these. I would just go, nope, I don't do it. I do sand seal. Well, that's all I would do. You got to understand, that's because they need to make money. You guys at home, you can deal with some stuff like that. And yeah, you got to take it off, look at it, see where the burr might be, check it, put it back on carefully, tap it on nice. It should just go on nice, press fit, clean, you know, the paint off of the area where it's the surface where the two surfaces meet, because even just the paint on there makes it difficult to put the pulley on. Take it on, take it off, and then when you finally get to the point where you tighten it, you know, turn the engine over, make sure it doesn't get stuck. You know, those are all things you got to do with the pulleys. It's a little fussy. It's a little, you know, it's not that fun to do. So, but that's why I do it. I do it because I don't want that thin area at the keyway. All right. So if I need a sand seal, I'll run a sand seal. If I don't need a sand seal, I will not run one. And I'll play around with it until I get it to work without it. Okay. So I've had a couple that were actually loose, a couple of cases. I had one case that was loose. It slipped right on. It was actually, the tolerance I think was a little bit loose even. And then I had this one here was a little bit tight. So it was maybe, we measured it, I think it was like 1,000ths of clearance, and that's it. It wasn't much. So when I sanded it, it got it down to maybe a couple of thousandths between them so that it won't, you know, be an issue or tighten up as, you know, as the metal gets warmer. If it rubs just a tiny little bit, it's not going to do much. But I'm just saying, but if I put it on and it's having difficulty turning the engine over, that's definitely an issue. It's going to, you know, it's going to seize up or something's going to happen. So you better make sure when you put these pulleys on that you just double check it and take your time. The same way you do all of your engine stuff when you do it at home, do it 2 or 3 times. Check it 2 or 3 times. There is no, you are not trying to burn a paycheck. Okay. When you're in a shop and you're doing it for a living, you have to have specific parts that you're using all the time that are the same, because you need to just slam that sucker together if you're going to make any money. That's the way it is. At home, you can just take your time, put it together, take it back apart, put it together, take it back apart, whatever. Mock it up, check it, you know. There's no hurry. So that's the difference. All right, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.